started. Thank you.
Great. Welcome. So, okay, so starting with the course outline and the lab setup first. So this spreads across 6 to 7 weekends and having around 26 hours of, like total training. And obviously online mode would be there. And at last you will be getting recording or recorded session of all those, modules or the content which we will cover. So I think I can see that most of you know about the LTM, so that would be easier for you to grasp the GTM concept. So the outline basically covers around like 10 chapters, okay, where we will having like big IP system setup. We'll start with the lab setup, okay, how you basically connect your big IP into the infra and provision the modules like LTM and GTMs. Then introduction about the DNS and the big IP DNS or GTM. So just to inform you that GTM has changed now. So they have changed the name of big IP GTM to big IP DNS, but you can call it interchangeably, either big IP DNS or big IP GTM. So we'll be seeing the difference between the DNS and the big IP GTM. We'll see then around how do we accelerate DNS resolution through the GTM. Okay, so there we will cover about like the DNS cache, DNS Express, okay, and some kind of resolution of the DNS queries via the John records and everything, including the GSLVs, wide IPs and all. And then again, like there is a thing called intelligent DNS resolution, which is why we are studying GTM at the first place. So you know GTM is very intelligent in terms of the DNS resolution. So you can pretty much do any kind of like DNS resolution with the help of wide IPs. Okay, and as we all know that like GSLB is a like a super feature of the GTM. So we will explore that. Then we'll see about the probes and the matrices, or you can say probes in other term as a monitors. So that will be there. Then we will be having like load balancing again of the how many types of load balance we have, a static or dynamic. So we will explore those things. Then again the monitorings, and then we will see like the logs and the notifications, like how many log levels are there, where those files will be like stored and everything. And then some advanced topics like DNS securities, okay, the DNS sync groups, how can you like keep all those all the GTMs in your environment in a single sync group, okay, so that they can like configure in an active manner. So then there is something called DNS 64, so or 64, which means like IPv4 to v6 and v6 v4 to v6 and 6 to 4. So that we will cover. At last, we will also prepare for the interview question answers. Okay, so if you are looking for some like what is a change or something, then we will provide you some assistance regarding the interview, what kind of interview questions you will get. And then there will be a benefit of lifetime assistance for interview and real time troubleshooting. Suppose in your environment you are getting some issues with the GTM, then you can reach out to us anytime. And like so all these things will be covered over 6 to 7 weekends, okay. And talking about the lab now, so everyone will be getting lab
Ashish,
access. Yeah.
Ashish, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah,
Will
go
you
ahead.
also cover the troubleshooting part also?
Yeah, obviously. So I'll share some like real time or from my experience, like what kind of issues you might get, okay. And if you have something in your scenario or in your environment which you're trying to discuss or resolve, then we can do that over here. So definitely we'll touch that also, troubleshooting. And regarding the lab now, each and everyone will be getting lab, okay. So let me share the lab topology. This is the lab topology, okay. Are you able to see?
Yes, we can see.
We can see.
Yeah, so basically we have simulated 2 data centers on our lab, okay. As you can see that this router is basically segregating two data centers. So once again, so this one, let me start the sketch. So suppose this is your one second. And this is your data center one, okay, and this will be your data center two. So we are basically simulating two data centers, okay, and in each data center we have a pair of like big IP devices which we will provision to the GTM and LT modules. Similarly, in other data center we have pair of F5 big IP devices along with Linux servers which we will use as a backend nodes, okay, and this is our like a gateway router which is segregating like DC1 and DC2, and this is our management workstation from where we will do all kind of stuff, and each and everyone will be getting these like what do you say, access to this particular lab, okay, so you can do your labs according to your ease. Any questions so far with regard to topology or anything?
So separate account would be created for everyone, and we will have a lab topology like this. We have created the same scenario as production, and
Yeah,
this is like that. So we will have
and
two
also
different tests.
right. Also, you will be getting a setup manual. So, like how to set up, like routing between the core switches, gateway router, and other data centers. So, you will be
So this is
provided
basic
the
topology.
lab
So
setup.
once you,
The basic
so this
technology.
is basic topology. So once you enroll with us, you will get all lab setup, and we will tell you how routing and switching works.
Right.
So any questions, let's make it interactive. So if you have any
Yeah.
questions, you can ask.
The purpose of this demo is to make it interactive. Okay. So, if you have any questions, any like like what you say, thought that okay, how hard it is to learn GTM and anything, most welcome. Okay. So please shoot out. So regarding this
Okay.
topology,
One question I have related to this design. So,
yeah,
big IP
Your voice is
is
not clear. Can you be
your
loud?
your
yeah.
voice is breaking.
So, yeah, is it fine now?
Little
Yeah, it's
bit.
better.
Yeah, and let me speak. Actually, I'm not using the earphone because of some technical issues. Anyway, so my question is here, like related to will we get the same lab setup whichever you are showing in
Yes.
your
Yes,
presentation?
you will get the same
Definitely.
setup. It will be on cloud. It's a remote setup. You will get access. You will get your credentials. It will be 45 days access, and you will get the same setup which is shown in this picture. We will not hide anything. You can ask n number of questions. If you have doubts, which topic will cover? Do you will cover this? Will you cover
Right.
this? You can ask anytime. But the lab
Yes.
topology would be same.
Is this your big IP DNS or is this your big IP LTM?
So we will be, basically provisioning
So
both
Asif,
on the very same machine.
you can tell them that big IP1 and big IP3 would be, so big IP1 and big IP3 would be acting as your DNS, would be active. Every big IP would have both LTM and DNS configured in do.
Yeah.
So we will
Okay.
discuss active scenario, we will discuss active standby scenario also.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Any other question, Indu?
No, no, thanks, Gary.
Okay, you can continue. AI.
Yeah. Anyone? Any questions regarding the lab topology or lab access?
Iqbal, I have one question.
Yeah.
Okay, is it possible to learn like how to upgrade the GTM, like records, all the things?
Sorry.
So Iqbal,
Upgrade.
so uh, AI, he's asking like, suppose if you upgrade GTM,
Yeah.
will
What
you
are the
tell what are the steps? It will be cover. So we have already done upgrade. So we will tell you like what are the prerequisite, how you can
Mhm.
upgrade the device. So it will be covered. So we will show
So
you
if
like,
it is right, if it is related to the firmware upgrade, so certainly will help you out. Okay, so
Yeah,
any F5 box can be updated to the new firmware,
correct, correct.
right?
Because when you upgrade
Yes.
GTM, right, what are the precautions to be taken? and
Yeah,
how we
Good
can
question,
create.
Anji. Good question.
good.
So it will be covered.
Okay.
It will be covered.
Uh,
Yeah, yeah.
hey guys, one more
Uh,
question. Sorry, sorry, sorry.
no worries. Go ahead.
Uh, yeah, once that 45 days period would be over, is there any way or chance that we can set up a same type of topology in our EVE environment, or would you guys
Right.
help
You
us
can
to
set up.
establish?
Good question. You can set up, but you need good RAM, like 32 GB RAM, because you need two GTM boxes provisioned with LTM box. So you need a good
Mm,
laptop, but you can set up on EVNG. It's possible because F5 provide you 30 days license. They can
mhm.
provide you 3 days license, and you can do it. But you need a good set laptop, like IA5 8 generation with 32 GB RAM. If it's not 32 GB RAM, then it's little difficult.
Mm. Sorry, brother, I forgot your name. I think I just interacted with you in the past.
Yes, this is from
Uh,
Skilled Inspirational Academy. My name is Vedit.
Vidit, yes, yeah, yeah, yeah.
So me and Asif work together. So GTM will be
Yeah.
delivered by him, and I will clear the doubts sometimes. So we will be delivering together. So I want to make this session as interactive.
No,
Since
no,
Asif has
I
15 years experience, so he will
no,
be
good man.
delivering this session.
No, no, fair enough. Yeah, we do have a faith in you guys. Please continue.
Yeah.
I have
So,
one question. I
yeah.
have one. Why don't we have any PC? I mean, client PC in this topology. So we
So
will.
this is your client PC workstation.
Workstation is
Okay,
your client PC.
client PC. From here, you can access these devices. Okay, and do everything.
So how, when you will configure this, so how we will generate the traffic from this PC only?
Right.
Yes. So you have to, like configure few things. Like once you set up the lab, like you have to add routes of like the VLANs and the other stuffs. According to that, you will after that you will be able to access like everything. So you have to like add routes on that client PC to access everything.
Okay.
Also, you will be having internet connectivity to that PC. So suppose you want to license your big IP device, so you don't have to like go out of that workstation. You can do it directly from there.
Okay. Got it. Got it.
So
Thank you.
Asif, will you also cover the like how we'll set up our lab in EVE environment or any in our
uh,
laptop or something?
so this is a cloud based lab. So you just need a browser, Firefox, okay, or internet edge. From there you can access it anytime, right? So
Then
if
Ajay,
you
you can
need it,
replicate. You can
right, if you
replicate
need it
this.
on personal laptop, then you have to replicate this thing, right? So this is
Oh,
totally cloud based. You having a public IP and you can just access it. That's it. You don't
okay,
have
fine.
to here. You don't have to buy a new laptop or kind of thing. But again, so if you want to simulate on your personal laptop, your resources have to be great, right? Like 32 GB RAM, as Karan said.
Asif, so we require a dedicated device for the running the LTM or GTM, or we just simply run the iOS image on the VM machine, or both
So every
way.
all the nodes which you are able to see right now are VMs, okay, and we have running iOS email on of big IP Linux server, everything, so it's a
So all
simulated
are
one.
virtual. So
uh, all are virtual, okay.
Okay,
so you just
And
download an image, ISO image from F5 website. We will share the link,
okay,
and then you can just upload and you can start it.
okay.
Okay, AI, you can continue
Uh,
now. Otherwise, we can take questions later on also.
yeah, all right. So okay, so course outline is clear, lab setup is clear. So now, so this will be our slide, okay, which we will cover throughout the course, right? So few things, as this is a demo class, so I would like to make it more interactive, and I'll have some topic like discussed over here. So let's start with the the what is DNS first, right? So basically DNS is a like a domain name system, okay, by which you can basically resolve IP to name and name to IP, right? So when we, one second. So DNS is basically, based on a hierarchical distributed system. It is a, if you imagine of a Unix file system, you can see a tree starting from a root folder. Similarly, in the DNS, you can start from a root, right? So let me show you this. So, okay. So this is the DNS tree structure, okay, where everything starts from, like root, which is a dot. And these are the top level domains, TLDs, which we say, com, edu, net, or gov. And similarly, we have second level domain or third level domain like F5 tech and so on, right? So DNS is basically used for IP to name and name to IP resolution. Okay. So there are, suppose you don't have any idea, but you want to check the IP of, FQDN like www.facebook.com or something. You can do it from your machine by running, tools like NSLOOKUP and dig. So if you're using Windows machine, you can use NSLOOKUP. If you're using Linux, then you can use dig. Okay. So DNS is basically, it's been there since very beginning. Okay, so that's why we are able to, communicate to the end our web pages or end servers, okay, with the name instead of an IP. So what is the difference between DNS and the GTM? You might be wondering, like, okay, fine, since we have DNS, so why we need GTM? What GTM is doing? So let me explain this now. So DNS and GTM are doing the same thing, right? Both are resolving the DNS queries, but there are some, drawback of legacy DNS, which is like, so in legacy DNS, we have only one load balancing, method, okay, which is called round robin. Okay. So there is no intelligence in the standard DNS or the legacy DNS. Okay. Instead, in GTM is an intelligent device or DNS. Intelligent DNS or device, you can say, means it supports more than like one load balancing mechanism, which is a round robin. Okay. Then we have ratios. Then we have list connections, etc. Okay. But in DNS, we don't have any other, like load balancing other than round robin. Also, like DNS cannot monitor your backend, resources. So it cannot basically, monitor. So no monitoring or probes. Okay. Whereas we have, like monitors and probes available in GTM. Okay. Third point, DNS is, basically, if you want to do some kind of resolution based on the geolocation or topology, suppose you are sitting in US and the resources are in, uh, Asia region. So, that kind of intelligence DNS doesn't have, right? So no geolocation resolution is available. Whereas in GTM, you have geolocation or topology based, resolutions. Okay. So in a nutshell, like GTM has much more functionality than your legacy DNS. Okay.
So guys, everyone,
So
Here, every company asks this question, so you need
Right.
to understand this.
Understand. This is very important. Like why you need GTM, since they are doing the same thing, resolution, but GTM is doing intelligently. So any questions so far, like between the differences?
So in a nutshell, you can tell them it's like availability load balance. So availability, as
Yeah.
Asif told you, that
Yeah.
availability.
Availability, and again, you can say global server load balancing. Okay.
So your
So
service will be available even if one
available
DNS server
globally,
is
right?
down. Even one
Right.
DNS server is down, another will
Exactly.
be up. But in normal
Uh,
DNS,
and
you don't have that feature.
that feature. So no GSLB is there. Okay.
And another thing
So
is DDoS protection. There is no DDoS protection in normal DNS. You cannot
again, yeah,
protect your DNS.
no, like security of your zone files or any, like domains. But in GTM, you can configure the security based on your zone files and the domains. So again, you can, like easily see that, GTM is very much capable of doing, lots of things, like, encryption of your zone files, like then load balancing of DNS request based on the locations wherever you are in the world. It can probe the monitor so that you cannot, feel that your site is down and you are not getting any kind of, 404 or something errors, right? And again, it's very intelligent. It has so many load balancing mechanisms. So obviously nowadays GTM is very much preferable over DNS. So
Even in cloud also, guys, DNS is required. Even if you are going into cloud, DNS will be required everywhere because it's a name resolution.
I
So
think it's very common these days. So everything which you are, like accessing through your browser is certainly having a DNS thing involved in between, or DNS server involved in between, right? So you cannot just, like ignore DNS when you are, like building your data center or like any application or anything. Okay, whether it's a greenfield or a brownfield. The best part is that you can introduce GTM in your existing infrastructure without breaking anything. You can migrate legacy DNS to the GTM. Okay, you can migrate from Cisco ACE or any other, like DNS servers like Infoblox to GTM. So these kind of things you can easily do. Okay. So any questions in terms of like differences? One more thing, I will be covering these things in more detail once we start the course. Okay. So in demo, I'm just giving you a, like what to say, a bird's eye view.
What will be the role of internal GTM and external GTM here in this case?
Okay. So good question. So internal GTM is same. So it's all about where you are placing your GTM, whether after the firewall or like before the firewall. So if you are deploying this particular GTM into your external perimeter network where you have your, like you can say like DMZ. Okay, so all the external DNS request will be going to your external GTM. Okay, and suppose you only want internal clients or internal user to, use that particular DNS or GTM to resolve to the, to resolve their DNS queries. You can just deploy that particular thing into your internal perimeter network. Okay, so basically like it's all about the positioning of the device, where you are positioning, like in the DMG or in the external facing environment, or in the, whether it's in the internal facing environment. So still they are doing the resolutions. So a very good, like working example is that suppose you have an application, okay, in your internal environment, okay, and you want to, you want only internal client to accept one client from external. So how would you achieve that? So in that case, you can do some kind of translation. Okay, you can do some kind of, like what do you say, a DNS resolution by internal GTM, but again you have to open some like firewall rules, right, and do a minimal extra or minimal configuration on your GTM, so that, like external user can also access your internal, like what is it, resources using the internal GTM, and vice versa also. So it depends like how you are positioning the GTM and where.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so now let's start the differences between LTM GTM. So I can see pretty much everybody knows about the LTM. So I guess it would be easy for everyone to understand. So LTM, what is LTM and what is GTM? Okay, they are not two boxes. Okay, they are just modules. Okay, which you have to provision on your big IP appliance, right? So suppose you have a big IP 1600 appliance, so you can make it GTM, you can make it LTM. It's not like client F5 is selling GTM as a dedicated box. No, it's all about the licenses and the provisioning. Okay, so whenever you hear a word or term like load balancer, so load balancer is basically like LTM. So because see all the load balancing things for the suppose you are accessing a application, okay, and which is configured on three host backend nodes or host. Okay, so when client is coming to the LTM is doing the real load balancing of your like the for your application traffic. But what GTM is doing, GTM is also doing load balancing, but it is doing the load balancing of the DNS queries. This is not doing the load balancing of your application traffic. I hope
This
this
is
is
very
clear.
important. This is very important.
Right, try to understand. So whenever from my experience, everybody says, okay, GTM is also a load balancer. No, load balancing means it's application traffic. When you are having application traffic which is doing or getting load balanced, then certainly it is being done by the LTM. And if you have DNS queries being load balanced, then certainly it's an GTM. Okay, so LTM and GTM are very much diverse. Okay, and LTM is local traffic manager, GTM is global traffic manager. You can do the load balancing of load balancing of DNS queries. Okay,
We could say like load balancing between two or multiple data centers, which are just
that is about the deployment and about the like how you want to how you want GTM to resolve the DNS queries. But again,
yeah.
GTM is only doing load balancing for DNS queries. So suppose you are, coming for a site called www.facebook.com. So for facebook.com, GTM will provide you an IP, right? It will not uh, get you connected to the facebook.com server. That will be taken care by the LTM. Okay. And once GTM hand over you the IP of the facebook.com, that IP could be IP of your LTM web, where you have real load balancer of the Facebook servers or backend servers
You mean to say
in
that
the pool.
you mean to say like the next request will directly traverse to the LTM rather than going to the GTM.
So yeah, so GTM is just doing a resolution. I will, explain that flow. Okay, for sure.
Discussion.
But yeah, so just think of it that you are doing load balancing of DNS query via GTM and load balancing of application traffic. Okay. LTM, they both can be provisioned in the same box or on individual, right? So again, what is it? Here we configured web, right? Here we configure wide IP, okay, or sometimes WIP, okay. LTM is basically, can be added as server object on GTM, okay. GTM can have multiple, sorry for the bad handwriting. So GTM can have multiple LTM associated for the DNS resolution. So this point is clear.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so suppose in your environment you have five, or suppose in within two data center you have two LTMs. In each data center, overall you have four LTMs. So you can, like associate all those four LTMs on your GTM. Okay, and that can be done via iQuery, which we will certainly explore later. So you can add LTM as a server object on GTM, right? And since we all know that GTM, like can be, like what do you say, can be integrated with, if you are not having GTM in your environment, it can be, like getting DNS query resolved via AD and then it's coming to the LTM. So LTM can work standard. It's not mandatory to have LTM and GTM. Okay, for DNS resolution and the load balancing. So if you are not having GTM, then think of it as your legacy DNS is doing the resolution, DNS resolution, and sending it to the LTM.
In any
Okay,
case, whenever you access any website, it should first go
any
to
website, it DNS. So it could be GTM, it could be your local DNS or legacy DNS. So
One query I have, Asif,
yeah, yeah.
do we need a separate physical device to configure these two features, or we can
Uh,
configure?
I've told you at the very beginning that you don't have to, you know, buy, or don't have to have, like a standalone device for each module. So you just need licenses. So suppose you are running a big IP 3900, okay, appliance. You have a appliance with nothing in it. You just buy license for LTM and GTM. You can just do the licensing, provision that particular box with LTM only, or GTM only, or LTM and GTM. Okay, so they are not hardware appliances. LTM, like we have switches, like Nexus switches, Nexus 7K or 9K. They are physical appliances, right? So unlike this, in F5, like we have appliance of different models like 3900, 1600, and Viprions also, cloud based devices also. So there you have to have only licenses to, enable these
So
features.
you just
That's it.
need a license. So whenever you call
Yeah.
F5, suppose you customer comes to you, customer requests you like I need to implement GTM right now. So you just need to request F5 that I need a license to provision both LTM and GTM. So it's a feature, it's not a device. So you have a F5
Yeah.
with
Right.
different license. That's it.
Right. And not only LTM, GTM, I have, like in my environment, I have seen that we have LTM, GTM, ASN, APM, all are on the very same box. Okay, only you need licenses. Just license them and provision them. That's it. You have that feature enabled and you are using all those, like modules,
Okay, okay, got it.
right? So it's all about licenses. If you are having box and you are not having licenses, then you won't be able to, provision GTM on your box. So
So Asif, in which case the dedicated box is used in data center, and in other another scenario, which case the simply running the iOS image on the VMware machine, it means.
okay, again, see, we have different platforms of big IP. Okay, cloud platforms, right? So there you just go on to whether AWS or Azure, do the stuff that will be your cloud based load balancer, right? We have
Yeah.
appliances like hardware, basically like one rack unit or two rack unit devices. Okay, so you have to just those are the physical devices. There you have to buy the license and license them and provision them and use that. Also we have like virtual editions as well, right? Where you are suppose having like ESXi in your environment. You have created one ESXi host and like created some VMs, and there you just need an iOS image. Again, for production you need a license. Created a VM, you just license it like we are doing in our lab, or like on your personal laptop. What we are doing basically, you just open a workstation, or basically a VMware workstation, and there create a VM, put the iOS image, and then you need a license, and you can boot it up as a GTM, LTM, ASM, whatever you like. So there are few, what you say, platforms. Also, there is one more platform which is called Viprion, which is a chassis based, device. There you can insert, like several blades into the chassis. Okay, so like we have in our Nexus. So there are basically four kinds of platform: cloud, virtual editions, uh, uh, hardware appliance, and Viprion. All right.
Okay.
So
Okay.
this Wipron is also a hardware model, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's
So
a
there,
chassis based. Yeah.
yeah, hardware, but it's a chassis based hardware.
Okay,
Okay,
okay.
okay,
Like
and
our
there,
Nexus. Yeah.
right there we have feature called VCMPs, right? So suppose you have a device where you have, like a four blade device, but you are running only one blade. So you can have, like, at least 20 LTMs configured on that particular blade, okay, individually, right? So each particular each, LTMs will be acting as a dedicated box for the client, or for the, customers. So there we have a feature called VCMPs, virtual cluster multi-processing. So it's a different thing, but again, there also you can like provision
It is as
LTM,
similar
GTM,
like Nexus 7K. We called as a VDC, virtual device controller.
Yeah, yeah, you are pretty much right there. But again, VDC is, like, as VDC is for dedicated customer, you can create multiple VDCs, right? And running there, like VRFs for customers within that VDC. So similarly here, you can have one box. So it's for scalability and, like for cost, what is the savings. So basically, you are saving some money, and also it's very much scalable. So suppose you are having a, customer, base increasing, so you can just insert another blade into the chassis. You can, like, have another 20 LTMs or any device. So that is a scalable. So that's why, like, client goes for that particular options as well. So okay, any question from LTM GTM kind of, like, comparison?
Uh, okay, going bit forward, Asif. So
Hmm.
those it means creating any records in the DNS, okay, and any sticky session, JSON session, all these thing comes under the GTM part only. Am I correct?
Right. So again, so for DNS, suppose, like www.fb.com. Okay, what is this? This is a FQDN, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for this, suppose you don't have GTM. So for this, you somewhere on the internet there will be a DNS server where you might have records for them, www.fb.com, and some IP addresses, right? So you can do that kind of thing on the GTM. So you can replace the DNS, legacy DNS on GTM. So anything related to the DNS, like record creation, zone creation, domain creation, anything you can run on the GTM, right?
Okay.
So you cannot host basically any application, okay, but you can do anything in terms of DNS. Whatever you are doing on a legacy DNS, you can do it here, but plus you have other features as well,
Okay.
which is not available on the Windows server, or like other stuffs,
Linux servers.
Linux servers. So okay, one more thing. So just to let you know, these F5 boxes, or like TMSs, are written on Linux. Okay, Linux distro known as CentOS. Okay, so if you know, like, Linux or CentOS, then you can pretty much do anything with the command line. So it's written on CentOS Linux. Okay,
So if you know
so
little bit Linux, so it would be helpful
Linux,
to
right,
troubleshoot.
full for
Troubleshooting.
troubleshoot, and yeah, do the CLI stuffs. Okay, so I have seen so many people that they are not aware of, like, like whether it's running Linux or Windows, or what kind of operating system or kernel it is having. So it is a Linux-based machine running CentOS distro. Okay,
Okay, Asif, one question from my side.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
GTM, when it is getting the DNS query, so as you mentioned, it's doing load balancing for those DNS
Yes,
query.
please.
Yeah.
Right.
So how it is doing that? Like, will it have a backend server like LTM, or uh, or or it is doing this, load balancing on its own? How is
No,
doing
so,
that?
so I've written this third point. LTM can be added as a server object, or can be, or it has to be added. So when you add LTM on your GTM, GTM have a functionality to auto discover all your LTM virtual web. Okay, so whenever
Mm-hmm.
you are creating some kind of wide IP or any kind of record, you can have visibility of all the virtual server configured on your LTM. So now your web will be like given as a DNS response. Okay, so suppose fb.com has a wide IP created on your GTM, and that GTM is having a virtual server for fb.com. So you will be getting a IP of virtual server configured on your LTM. Then client will, once client have that IP address, it will directly contact LTM.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll
Yeah.
show you one,
You can show
Mm-hmm.
let me
us
share that.
again.
Yeah. Let me, yeah. So it was quite interactive. So okay, so are you able to see my screen? So this slide.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
so this is client. Okay, step one. So it is trying to access www.f5.com. Okay, so what client will check first? Any idea, anyone?
Guys, please answer this.
Please answer. Yeah, be vocal. Okay, and
It will
the
check the
It will
local
go
report.
to the
cache.
That
local
way, I need
DNS.
to
It
right.
will check in the local DNS cache.
It will check the local DNS cache. One answer. Another.
Yes.
Anyone else?
Or any other DNS server, local DNS server, or the Google DNS server.
Google. Okay. Okay. Fine. First, a client will check its own cache and the host file. Suppose you have a host file entry for www.f5.com on your client machine itself. So it won't go to the local DNS. It will get an answer from there only, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So keep in
But
mind. So it's a interview question, guys. Okay. So everybody says, okay, it will check the local DNS cache. It will do, but first it will check its own cache and the resolver cache, we say. Okay. Or sorry, host file. Okay. Then if you are not having any entry in there, it will go to second step. You can see it will
Local
go to the local DNS. It could be your own DNS, in-house DNS, ISP DNS, or anything which you have given there, right? So it will send that request to local DNS. Get me this thing, www.f5.com. I don't have answer to this particular FQDN. So now local DNS will check its own cache. Okay, whether I have any cache entry for this, right? Getting, guys? Just be with me. So it will check its own cache. Okay, if it has resolved like recently, then it will give you from there only. It won't do any other like a steps. It won't perform any other steps, right? So if not, then what it will do, local DNS will say, okay, fine, I don't have answer to this particular FQDN. Let me check with the root. Root is a so every FQDN, every URL, or every site name has a dot appended at the last, which is invisible to us. So after .com, there is a dot at last, which is called root. Okay, so let me draw that one.
so there are around 13 root servers all over world, so which are authoritative, so which are called root
Yeah, third,
servers.
and plus then there has been a new addition to those 13. So it might be, if you check now, there will be around 16. I have recently seen somewhere with it. So earlier it was 13, but now it has been increased, I guess.
Ah, okay.
So okay, so this is your client. Okay, and client is going to LDNS. Okay, so so one more thing. So when client is querying the LDNS, okay, if it is not having any answer to itself. So this is called recursive query. Okay, it will be explained later. So now LDNS is saying that okay, fine, I don't have answer to www.f5.com. Okay, so LDNS will say okay, fine, let me check root. Okay, root. So there is a .com appended at last. So this box is started as a root. Okay, so it will forward the very same thing, www.f5.com. Okay, root, get me this address to this particular fqdn. Root will say fine, I don't know the answer, but I can give you a referral. Okay, so now if you look at the slide here, so fourth point, root is saying okay, go to this one, 100.1.1.1, right? So now it is giving a referral to LDNS. Now LDNS will do another query to this particular IP address 10.1.1, which is a .com server, parsed from right to left. Okay, so on .com server will check its cache, everything, right? And it will say, fine, I don't know the where it is located, but I can give you another referral where you can check. So it will provide another referral that is 150.10.10.53. Now again, same thing. LDNS will like make a query to f5.com now. Okay, now it is hitting that f5.com name server, which is 150.10.10.10.53. Now this f5.com has an entry, a record for this www.f5.com with this IP 216.34.94.32. Okay, now this 5.com server will provide answer to LDNS. Now LDNS say to client that I have the answer to your query, have this. So in ninth step, it is saying that 216.34.94.32 is given to the client. So okay, now what we have done so far is just resolve the query, right? We have not accessed the real server. Okay, guys, so just keep this in mind. Don't think that you are getting a page from this IP. You are just getting an IP address for that name. So it just happened in milliseconds, but okay, these many things are happens. Millions of servers are out there. Okay. So now client have the IP address of this www.f5.com, and now it is initiating a connection with f5.com directly. Then you will get page from f5.com or like google.com or facebook.com or any server or sorry applications.
Now it will go
Okay,
to LTM. It will be
now
on.
it may be okay. So I have one more slide where you have your queries like cleared, that this LDNS can be your GTM. Okay, so one second, guys, bear with me. So okay, after all these iterative queries, okay, I'm just drawing that, okay, sending it to .com. Okay, and again it is sending back to LDNS. Now LDNS is going to you know
f5.com.
this f5.com. So f5.com is sending here and it's sending back, and it now connecting to the f5.
So this all
www.f5.com.
queries are called iterative query. So
Yeah,
the
so that's why I have drawn this. So right, so client has queried to LDNS, which is called recursive query. Okay, and all these query initiated by LDNS to other root servers or other top level domain and other second level domain servers are known as
iterative.
iterative queries. Okay, so you can see easily see that why these queries are called iterative, because there are iterations, so many iterations, right? So many handshakes. Okay, fine, you are not having this, okay, let me go to this. Iterations are there, right? And client is doing only one recursive query to the, so it's a headache of LDNS now to do all those heavy lifting on behalf of client. After getting an answer, it just saying okay, fine, I found you the I found you an answer, get this, and try to connect, right? So it can be asked in your interview that what is difference between recursive query and iterative query. So iterative query are the queries initiated by LDNS or any DNS, which is your configured as a LDNS or like next DNS. And client always do a query to a, like local DNS, which is called recursive query. Any questions so far? I know it's too much, but again, if you can get this, all GTM concepts are very easy then. Okay,
This is very important.
this is very important. And now, and see, so just ignore, like other thing. As you can see, we have LDNS here, right? So you can have GTM as your LDNS as well, right? So GTM is doing the query. If it doesn't have any answer, it will do all kind of recursive, iterative queries on behalf of client and provide you an IP address, and you can initiate connection to the F5. So that's why I was explaining earlier. It is not doing any kind of application load balancing or handling any applications. Only handles DNS traffic or DNS queries, right?
I have one question, Asif.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Okay. At a time, GTM, how many connections can hold? I mean, like,
So it is a configurable thing. Okay. So you can pretty much set limits. Okay, like how many queries you want a GTM to handle for a particular zone domain, right? So it is totally configurable object. Okay. So when we'll get into that, I will show you like the limits, how to set limits for that. Like
So
suppose you
Anji,
want
you can
only
set the limit so you can configure it.
limits, right? Limits, matrices, everything you can set there.
So we will
Okay.
cover metrics. So Asif, can you add Gautam? He is got disconnected. You will be getting
One
request.
second. Okay, I made you host. Okay.
You can add.
Right.
So
Got
Anji,
it.
this all settings like
So
DNS, it depends. Like you need to ask the customer and you need to see your environment and then configure.
control totally depends
okay.
on your requirement, right?
Hmm.
Ideally, you don't limit these things, but there is an option of doing that. That's why GTM is intelligent. That's why GTM is more preferable over other DNS, right? Because you can do these things. You cannot set limit on legacy DNS. Getting it?
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Great. Any other question, guys? So we are almost close to like end of demo, but I have few more things to like cover. So again, be vocal, ask. If you're not getting it, let us know. Okay.
Uh, Asif, I have one more question.
Yeah, yeah, go
Uh,
ahead.
certification part.
Certification.
Yeah, GTM certification.
Okay. Yeah.
$185.
So
No, no.
part, okay, fine. So like which paper you want to do? Okay,
GTM.
based on your like, yeah. So suppose you want to do GTM, so the code of the paper is 302. Okay, it's a 300 series. So for that, you have a prerequisite for with like 201. So you have to clear 201 to appear for GTM certification or LTM certification or like APM ASM, right? So
Mhm.
if you have cleared 101, 201, then you are eligible for appearing for GTM certification, that is
Yeah,
302.
yeah. I cleared 201 as well.
Okay,
I'm
right.
I'm planning to do 301. That's why, because recently I heard GTM model paper got changed.
No, no,
So,
GTM did not got changed so far. So it will be your old platform. You can refer
mhm,
the blueprint. Every exam cost is 185 US dollars.
okay.
Earlier it was $130, but they have changed the pricing last
Right.
October.
They
Okay,
did not
they
change the
have
syllabus. They changed syllabus for 101 and 201, but they did
201
not
only.
change any syllabus for
So
GTM.
can we get questions same examination point of view, whatever we are teaching, learning here?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
We will
definitely.
give you tips also. There are no
We
dumps.
can give you, there
GTM
are
wise.
no dumps, right?
No, no, not dumps. I'm asking.
Because dumps is nowhere available, but yeah, again, you just open the blueprint, like you can just go through each, like what is the content, and you can ask questions. We can certainly
Okay.
resolve the questions.
Asif has just cleared it, so he will give you advice.
Right, right. So it got a
Okay.
spark for me, but yeah, it was on the very last version which I've given earlier. So
Okay.
again,
Yeah.
for
So Asif
201,
just
you might have to. Yeah.
And what is, sorry, Asif, what is this zone record, PTR record, NS record like?
So these are okay. Let's talk about that.
Asif, before
That's
that,
why.
can you just tell
Yeah.
them like how to integrate GTM with LTM? Like just I think Sid was happening asking one question like how
Uh,
request will go to LTM.
okay, great.
You can just
Let
tell
me.
them records and this topic, two topics more.
Okay, right. So Sid, can you reiterate your question? Okay.
So,
Once again, like so that I can,
mhm.
explain.
Yeah, so I was saying that when the GTM is getting the query like DNS, so it is resolving it that query on its own, or is sending the request to LTM? Like
No.
I was saying that
Okay.
LTM has the
Okay.
backend server and it is doing the load balancing,
Okay.
and yeah. But I got your answer. I got it.
Okay.
When it,
You got it
yeah,
when it
when it will get the request, it will pass after
Yeah.
resolving the DNS. It will send that to LTM, and then
Yeah.
LTM will do the load balancing. Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
yeah,
Real quick, I'll draw something. Okay.
yeah.
Since you have asked this, so LTM. Sorry for the bad drawing, guys. Okay. So this is suppose data center one. Okay. You have one GTM. Suppose a dedicated GTM, fine, and two LTMs in HA, right?
Mm,
So on LTMs, you have VIPs configured. Suppose 10.10.10.10.1 colon 80. Same will be here also, right? And this VIP has pool, and pool numbers are like 172.16.1.10 and on port 80, and suppose 1.20 on port 80, right? So obviously this VIP is doing load balancing for these two pool, right, members. Now on GTM, so this VIP is for application suppose facebook.com. Okay. And so these backend server hosting facebook.com. So now on GTM you have configured a wide IP. Okay. On
mhm,
wide IP you can, wide IP is basically uh, doing a GSLB kind of thing. So we will talk about that, but just for your like sake of your query, I'm saying that fb.com has a C name or alias name. Those are the records I will tell you guys, so don't like panic. So www dot suppose fb dot, or you can say WIP. Once again, www dot wip.fb.com. Okay.
yeah,
So one more thing. When you try to hit this fb.com, okay, so it will go to where? LDNS, right? As I've shown you earlier. Okay.
yeah.
So on so if your GTM is LDNS, then it will come here only. So I'm here. I'm not. We are not having GTM as a LDNS. So suppose there is some other DNS, okay, and we have delegated some zone to GTM. So this fb.com, okay, has an entry for with this IP or C name, alias name, we call it. Okay. So when you hit www.fb.com, it will come to the LDNS. LDNS will see, okay, I have an alias name record, and this alias name record is wide IP configured on GTM. And this wide IP has pool, which is having a member 10.10.10.1.80. Okay, what is this? This is your VIP IP, right? So now GTM will give client IP of VIP. Okay, now client will initiate connection with web directly, and then it can, have those web pages available for you.
Okay, got it.
Okay, but again, I have like added wide IP. I'm sorry because like it was I was in the flow, so that's why. But okay, wide IP we will discuss later. But I think you get the idea, right?
Yeah, yeah, I got the idea. Yes, thank you.
Okay. Any question or any doubt, guys, regarding like how resolution happens?
You can just tell them the records. Someone was asking about.
Yeah, yeah, records. Yeah. So on this topic, anyone has any question? Okay.
Guys, say yes or no so that we will be.
Yeah, I
No.
know. Because
Yeah.
this
No
is
doubt.
distorted for me. I'm just picking, things from everywhere. So in demo, that's why, like I might not connect everything. But yeah, it would be better if you ask question like how it can be done. That would be easy for us to, like give you. Okay, so for on DNS, we have something called DNS records. Okay, which is very important. So I'm explaining few records. So we have a record. Okay, we have quad A records. Okay, we have Ptr records. We have SOA records or start of authority. Okay, we have name server records, and we have CNAME or alias records. Okay, name server. There are many more like Amex record, okay, and TXT records and etc. Okay, but these 6 records are very much important. Okay, and for which you have to, like idea about how it works and which record is what and how it works. So a record is sometimes called as host record. Okay, so any idea, guys, what is a record? Real quick. So a
I mean,
record is like, yeah, go ahead.
host name with IP address.
Great. fb.com has an IP address 10.10.10.1. You have to create one record on your DNS, be it GTM or legacy DNS. If you are creating a record, there will be a FQDN or host name and the IP. That is called a record. Simply host name to IP. What is quad A record? Quad A record is the very same thing again, but it for IPv6. So you can have like 006E colon something, right? So same fb.com, if you are using like IPv6 in your addressing system, okay, then you can use quad A record. Then you cannot use a record. Okay, a record is for IPv4 only. Same thing, but only the version difference. All right.
Right.
Okay, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, PTR record is basically nothing. It's just a PTR is also known as pointer record. It's just points, kind of a record, but it points to like one particular like host to host or host to IP or anything. If you are having this fb.com and if you want to point it to some other IP or name, that can be done with the PTR record. Okay, so PTR record is known as pointer record. Okay, pointer records. Start of authority, very important. Okay, and very easy. So as its name suggests, start of authority. So suppose like I am a DNS server and I have this domain fb dot. I'm the owner of this domain. No one in the world is having this particular domain configured. So anything okay for fb.com will be start from my, like me, right, for the DNS resolution. startup authority. SOA record we call it. Okay.
It's like I'm the
So
owner and I will.
yeah, I'm the owner. I will start it. Right. So suppose for a f5.com, suppose with it is owner. So with it will be starting those like resolution from, or with it is basically responsible or authoritative for that particular domain or zones. Okay. Any doubt or any query?
Uh,
And every domain has
I,
a
I
startup. Yeah, yeah.
Is that your mean related to registrar record, who they provide that domain name?
Okay, so domain name is totally, like based on the availability of the domain. If you want to use it for a public, something, right? So we have one, like let me
So what was the question, Asif?
once again, yeah. Yeah, so example.com is basically a free domain. As you can see, anybody can access, anybody can use without the permission of the registrar or any domain owner or a domain provider. Okay, so as you can see at my screen, this domain is for you. Use in illustrative examples in documents. So anybody can use. Everybody, it is free for everyone, right? But again, if you are trying to use facebook.com, you cannot. Already it has been registered to someone, right? So if you go to registrar, if you tell them, okay, I want something like this, suppose like, uh, asif.com. Okay, so it will check whether it has been published to someone or issued to someone or not. If not, then I can take it and reserve it. So no one can use it apart from me, right? So example.com is free. So again, so if you go to registrar is the or any domain like provider like GoDaddy, like HostGator and other. Okay, so there you have to check whether that particular domain is available for you or not. But yeah, example.com everybody use in their like office or everywhere, or they're teaching that. Okay, fine, example. That's why this particular domain is free, right? And it's for illustrative. So this has been uh one second, let me do it. This has been reserved by INA for the education purposes. Okay, example.com and example.org, right? So you won't be charged, you won't be like convicted for using this particular like domain, example.com. Okay, I hope that answers the question. Hello.
Yeah, but like bit confused about like whichever the SOA you're talking about, like start of authority. So that one.
Yeah, so start of authority, suppose you have bought this domain, or you have get this registered with the registrar, fb.com. You get this from GoDaddy, right? Now you want to use it for your application. So on your DNS server, be it GTM or anything, you have created a zone, fb.com, right? So before using that fb.com for all the resolution, there are few mandatory like records which needs to be created, which are SOA, NS, right, name server, and a record for sure. That's why you can like get the IP of the fb.com. So
So in the so every zone, like you can think like every zone hosted on DNS server, whether it's an IT.com. Suppose you have different
yeah,
zones like IT or CSC. Every zone should have
yeah,
one record which is compulsory. That is
yeah.
SOA. It's
Yeah.
not necessary that you need in GTM or DNS, but it is a necessary thing. So every zone should have one start of authority record. And it is
So one
basically
sec.
like suppose you're starting any company, you must have one owner, right? To manage your company. So it's like that.
Okay. So see, I'm resolving this fb.com, right? www dot or facebook.com. Yeah. See, what are you seeing here? There is an IP address associated to this, and there is an alias record for this, right? If I do Facebook instead of facebook.com, fb.com, it should go to facebook.com ideally. Let me show you. See, again, getting the same IP, whether I'm typing fb.com or facebook.com. Okay, same IP, right? There is an alias. This is a CNAME record, right? Aliases. You can interchangeably use both the names, but for using that, you have to have a record, like created on your DNS, which is called alias or CNAME, right? So for fb.com, there are two aliases, fb.com and facebook.com, right? And you can see this line, non-authoritative answer. It means this particular server, which is IPv6 address, is not the authoritative for this resolution. But again, it is getting referrals from like those iterative queries. It is giving me the non-authoritative answer. So whosoever is the authoritative, like for this particular fb.com or facebook.com, has an SOA record created on its DNS. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're getting it. So sorry.
Yes, it's
Yeah,
clear.
it's clear.
It's okay, great. So because non-authoritative means you can also answer to me, okay, fine, Asif, this is the address of the facebook.com, okay. So but you are not authoritative for that, right? You just get a referral from some other DNS and you are giving me. But again, if you are authoritative for that one, that we will see in the like labs, authoritative for like that particular zone or domain or record, then there you will see authoritative answer directly from the IP address of the authoritative server. There you have SOA records and everything created. So I've covered this, alias is also here, right? So alias or CNAME is the same thing, right? So I'll talk about the name server, but yeah, again, so this CNAME is also known as alias. So it is like, suppose asif.com equals, sorry, asif123.com. Okay. So either you type this or you type this on your browser. They are both aliases to each other, right? So just alias. So suppose your name is Indu, right? And your pet name is Indra. Suppose.
Right.
Okay.
That is
So
nice
that
example.
way, that is the best example I can say, right? So
Okay.
if someone calls you Indu, you will sorry.
Sometimes people call it a short name or
Exactly. So short name or like any alias name or pet name. Some everybody has his official name and a pet name, right?
yeah.
Right.
So whenever you hear, you just turn around. Okay, fine, that's my name. So, but if you get called by some other name, you won't respond, right? Because that is not your alias. Okay, I hope
Asif,
that answers.
I have one more query.
Yeah,
Suppose if you resolve that fb.com, right, you are getting one IP
yeah,
address, but recently we
right.
are getting multiple IP addresses when you resolve that host name, any
It's
host name.
it totally depends on your client machine, like what all the DNS, like the servers you have it configured there. Okay, and accordingly you will get the answer. So if I do google.com,
Okay.
okay, there are two IP. One is IPv6 and one is, they have both quad A record also created and A record also created. Here we are getting two addresses, right?
Uh-huh.
So you can have multiple IP addresses, and obviously Google certainly don't have one IP address, right, or one server. They have millions of server, but you are not able to see because it's a restriction from the ISP itself. That okay,
Anzi, what
fine.
was
Why
your
to?
question? Can you repeat? I think he was asking something. So what was your question, Anzi? Could you repeat?
Karan, actually, if I type google.com, okay, currently you
Hmm.
are getting two IP address. One is IPv6 and IPv4.
Hmm.
Sometimes, right, if you
Yeah.
resolve any host name, you are getting multiple IP addresses and keep on changing.
Right. It
So,
depends upon like
Yeah.
how
So
many name servers you have, how many. It depends totally how many
uh,
servers are behind.
it keeps on changing because of the security reasons also. Okay,
Right.
so currently you are seeing two IP. Maybe in the future you will see different IP. Also, there are some TTL values. Let me show you something
Right.
else.
It depends on TTL and refresh values also.
Yeah, yeah.
no, my
Okay,
question,
for
the same URL can be mapped with multiple DNS server.
yeah, obviously.
Here
So
also.
see, one more thing. One fb.com can have like 10 to 100 host a record. That is fine. That is totally fine.
Mhm.
You have 4 name servers, so it can
4 name servers, right? So
it
these
can
name
answer
servers
from
are
anyone.
for anyone, like, okay. So going back to the GTM scenario, on a virtual server on LTM, you can create multiple virtual server for only one application listening on different port. Or obviously in the backend pool member, you don't keep only one server. You can have like 2 servers or more than 2 server, at least 10 server or 100 server based on your,
We will show you
like
when you
traffic.
will do load
Yeah.
balancing algo. We will show
Uh,
you like if you do round robin. First
yeah.
request will go to one virtual server. Second request, your IP will change to second virtual server. So you can think like that. When you do
Right.
NS lookup to wide IP will do load balancing per pool. So pool can have
Right.
multiple IPs. So first it will go to one virtual server, then it will go to
Yeah.
second virtual server. So
Uh,
it will go like that,
right.
Anji.
So if I
Uh,
correct, then a name NS record is like the actual server which hold the application. It can be more than one.
okay. So exactly. So NS records are basically, as you have seen here, NS 21234. So Google.com basically this particular name server ns1.google.com has that, like what is it, domain google.com one configured. So on this ns1 name server you have SOA. Okay, you can have like you CNAME, you can have like what is it, the other what is a pointer or other records. So name server is basically like who is giving me this name. Okay, so Google will go to this any of these name server. This name server in turns have an IP address. Let me check the IP address of this one. ns1.google.com. Okay, see, it is not, it is due to the security reason it's not showing me the the IP address obviously, but it is saying that okay fine, this is the serial number, this is the refresh timer, and this is the retry, this is the expire. After 30 minutes this particular like address can like get changed. Okay, answer to your question. So it keeps on changing. It depends on the, if you want to keep it like forever only like persistent kind of records, a records you have created, then only one IP will be there. But obviously think about the real life scenario. You don't want to have only one IP associated for one application, right? Suppose that particular application goes down, then you don't have any resiliency. That's why we keep like more than one servers, okay, for the very same application and doing load balancing. And this is
Recently,
taking me back. Yeah.
yeah, in cloud environment, I mean, they are mapping with multiple DNS server. So
Yeah,
last 6 months. So every time IP will be getting changed for this one. And
exactly. Yeah,
whenever
right.
mapping, if it is on-prem, okay, GTM can resolve the whatever servers available, GTM servers. That's fine. But when they
Right.
mapped with cloud, the on-prem
Yeah,
GTM,
right.
so that's what the challenge now. That's why.
Yeah, so recently I have faced that kind of challenge also when I was doing some cloud. But again, so cloud DNS and your on-prem DNS has to be in the very same like set of records for the domain which you want to like resolve to basically. So suppose fb.com is on cloud also, and you have on-prem also, right? Okay,
Oh, yeah.
so if somebody is trying to resolve it from the cloud load balancer, you're trying to resolve it from your on-prem. So, and one, or think of it this way. So, suppose fb.com is a cloud server instead of a what do you say? What is a virtual server or anything? Suppose it's a cloud server. So, if you want to probe that cloud server from your LTM in your on-prem, so you can do it via two ways, one with an IP address and one with the fqdn. So for suppose you are adding pool member as fqdn for facebook.com instead of IP, then that fqdn needs to be like have a record on your cloud DNS server. I recently did that. I was facing some challenge, but yeah, somehow I like able to resolve that. So what we did, we have taken the IP address of the cloud DNS and configured on our LTM. Okay, on LTM you can configure DNS as many as DNS just for the resolution purpose. So by doing that, we were able to add FB like backend server as a FQDN into the pool. So now LTM is sending request to the local DNS, and that local DNS is sending to the cloud DNS configured on our LTM. Right. But again, on cloud and on-prem DNS, there are so many challenges which are still being, uh, being addressed. So obviously, but you have to, be in close sync with the cloud guys and the on-prem guys. Suppose I'm not aware of your cloud that there is a cloud DNS also. Then how would I resolve to a cloud server, right? So
Okay.
cloud firewall is also there. So there was so many things which was
Yeah.
involved, but yeah. So it totally
Okay.
depends. So
Yeah. Uh,
yeah,
Iqbal, I have one more question.
yeah,
What
sure.
is the
Yeah, go ahead.
what is the security in GTM? Because it's located in internet facing, right? So how we can protect the GTM
DNSEC.
from it?
So as GTM is doing all the DNS resolution or DNS queries resolution, so there is a feature called DNS security or DNS sec. Okay, so DNS sec is basically, so suppose without DNS sec you are using facebook.com. So suppose anyone in the middle can intercept that record, okay, a query, okay, and provide his own IP. Okay, fine. This facebook.com is me. So just to avoid or just to mitigate all those things, there is a feature called DNSSEC, so that you rest assured that you are getting a response from real Facebook server instead of the malicious. Okay,
Okay.
so we can have that thing configured, DNSSEC,
No, is there any
so that
verification done before sending queries to the
keys and signature based things. Okay, so let me show one real quick thing to you. So we have this thing in one second. We are almost close to our, yeah, see. So okay, for DNS server, DNS server or the the what is an authoritative server. So you can mitigate denial of existence kind of thing. That okay, fine. So these keys can help you with the security. So there are RR-SIG, DNS key, DNS and NSEC3 record types which you have to configure. Again, DNS security keys are having Jones signing keys and key signing keys. So when you have Jones signing keys, then this particular key is only available with the real servers or the real Jones servers.
Yeah, got it.
So right, so in the suppose I'm the malicious attacker or user, then I don't have that signing key, so I cannot decrypt decrypt that DNS query and intercept your DNS query and provide my IP address. If there is no DNS security, then I can easily do that.
So it will be done hierarchically, Anji. So you
Yeah,
will
hierarchically, yeah.
root like that. So in every phase,
So again,
every it will do
right.
it.
So
Okay.
like in SSL offloading or SSL handshakes, you have a TCP handshake first, then you have a SSL handshake, right? There you exchange, like each other server and client will share each other's certificates and public key, not the private key. So whosoever has the private key will be able to encrypt, decrypt the packets, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So that way you can. All right. So guys, we are almost there, and
So
we have
Asif,
15 minutes. So I hand over to you guys if you have any question or any suggestion. So please. And also, uh, since we have a very good amount of participation, so I would say just enroll, because so once you enroll, we will have to prepare your lab accordingly, okay, and everything. So I would say this is the contact details, so you can contact them directly and get your enrollment done.
so we have 15 minutes left, so you can ask
Yeah,
your
15 minutes for you guys, so please go ahead and let me know what else do you
Uh,
want.
Asif, are you going to upload this video on YouTube? Because I have to recommend to one of my friend this video.
uh, that will be done, but again, for demo, certainly it will be done.
Yeah,
Okay.
for the demo only,
Yeah,
for this
yeah,
demo only.
right, that can be done. Okay, guys. So
The channel will be the Skill Inspiration Academic, correct?
Right.
right.
Okay.
Correct. One second. Let me. Vidit, can you please paste this into the chat for everyone?
Yeah.
YouTube channel name.
Chat, I pinged you. You can ping on because I don't have access to the chat right now.
Okay. Okay. No worries. So you ping me where?
On
Okay.
WhatsApp.
Okay. Okay.
You can stop the recording now. I think recording can be stopped.
Great. Thanks, guys.